All right, all right, all right. I think it's official. I think we're live, 8 p.m., and we're logged in. If you're just tuning in, welcome. My name is Rasangolo Tafari.
And I'm Jenna, and welcome to
People Talking Kali. And if you're new to the show, People Talking Kali is a live stream that actually has a mission and it has a vision. And as we've been preparing and securing guests for the show, Jenna and I, we had to review that mission. We had to look back at what was the purpose for doing this in the first place so that we could use that as a template to determine how we can grow. Because ultimately, family, we want to make this experience for you, the viewer, for our guests, and ultimately us as something meaningful, genuine, and that will eventually change lives. Okay? So to get started with today's program, we're going to journey back in time for a second. And we're just going to take a moment and review what was it that got a program like this started. At the time that People Talking Kali began, Jenna and I had already been in the Pekiti Tirsia community for a number of years. I was authorized to be an instructor in 2013 by Tuhan Ramel Tortal. He communicated with my original teacher, Tuhan Akmir Baraka. There was a powwow with the Grand Tuhan. And here we are. Jenna, my wife, became our first guest. And in that period of time, we met a number of Tuhans and a number of guests and practitioners. Matas Maguro, Francis Estrada, and Mandala RV, along with Mandala Jeanette Ladores, were hosting Tuhans in New York and in New Jersey 2 or 3 times a year. At that period of time. Mandala Richard Howe was hosting Tuhan Ramel often in Florida around that time. And so in those beginning days, Jenna and I were able to meet a number of amazing practitioners and Tuhans, and we became a family. As a matter of fact, Jenna's first experience in PTK was shortly after we had started our program here in Philly, was with Tuhan Jared Wahangi. I don't know if you wanted to share anything about that.
Oh, yes. It was a great seminar because it was with people who I wouldn't know, but who would become this, but they had become this great family of ours, the New York elite, PTK elites. And it was a great experience because I thought that the seminar gave me a lot of clarity about what PTK had evolved to. And the camaraderie between the participants was so amazing. And it was a great experience. And now I can call all those people family.
That's right. And so what I'm trying to say is we walked into this this brotherhood and sisterhood and familyhood of Pekiti Tirsia Kali. And just the kind of personalities that we were either unaware or not made aware of some of the stuff that was brewing behind the scenes, okay? And without getting too much into it, those of you who know, and those of you who don't know, speak to your instructors. PTK found itself fractured. It found itself divided at a period of time. And there were Tuhans who were brothers and friends and camps of people who were brothers and friends, and things got awkward, okay? And we felt an incredible strain on the community. We felt it, and the people in the different camps, even though we're all PTK, were beginning to feel it. And there was this sense of, even though there's this thing going on amongst some really important people in the PTK community, the practitioners, the instructors, the people who are on the ground are suffering in the sense that we're finding ourselves divided, splintered, and not knowing how to communicate. And hence spawned the concept of People Talking Kali. Could we create a platform, a place where practitioners in the PTK community who had the passion, who were new, who were old, who were young, could we create a watering hole, so to speak, where irregardless of your background, you know that this would be a space where none of that mattered. None of the separation and the division mattered, and the love for PTK and the passion for training trumped everything. And I said a watering hole a minute ago for a reason, because in the jungle, if you watch your National Geographic shows, when there's a drought, you'll find all kinds of animals at the watering hole. You'll find animals that are traditionally enemies in the jungle, taking a break at the watering hole because everybody's thirsty. And so People Talking Kali, the mission of People Talking Kali is a non-political platform where passionate practitioners and instructors can come on the show and share as one our experiences. And it's very important that Jenna and I reviewed that mission statement because we need to grow. We need to grow as individuals, and we need to grow as a show. You know, we were looking at the first season of the show when we reviewed our last interview with Mandala Lamont, which was great. And we said, how could we make this experience even better? How can we have more of an impact in your life? How can we have more of an impact on the PTK community and bridging people together? We've done a great job of, you know, establishing ourselves here and boxing, you know, our space, but I think we could do a little bit better. And so step one was reviewing the mission. And if that's a, you know, and I know I'm talking a lot, thank you, Jenna, because Jenna knows behind the show, there's a lot of labor, family. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, you know? And so what I mean by that is I make the effort to really reach out to as many camps as possible so that we can make this an enriching experience for all. So if you didn't know that, now you know. This is the origin of the show, and this is what we want to restart and build on from there.
Yes. And in addition to that, we want to make some enhancements to how our show is structured and organized. So that way we can, again, do more to bring more content to you, the viewers, whom we support so much.
Right. I mean, we've got some Tuhans finally that we've lined up. We've got some students you've never heard. We've got great instructors you've never heard. We want to make the experience more meaningful, family.
Yes. Yep. And so, I want to give a quick greetings to Nomad Kali and Citadel Combat Arena Brother Morgan. Greetings, everyone. Hope all is well with everyone around the world. And so in accordance with those, the enhancements that we're going to make, we're going to start our show with a segment called What's New? What is new in the Kali world? So Guru Rasangola, what's new?
What's new in the PTK community? First and foremost, rise in power. Rest in peace to a legend whose spirit just transcended recently. Okay, Greg Allen is a name that when I first started in 2003, when I met Tuhan Akmi Baraka, I heard his name a lot. My big brother Jason Nardi would speak his name often. So in our What's New part of the segment today, we want to pay homage and give credit to the name of Brother Greg Allen. If you haven't heard his name, again, talk to your instructors. He is one of the early students and pioneers when the Grand Tuhan first came to the States in the mid-late 70s and played a large part in proliferating Pekiti Tirsia Kali and Kali throughout. And it just came to our attention on social media that he passed. We want to give our homage and respects and condolences to his family, as well as his students. And yeah, that's what we want to go with that.
Yes.
So that would cover our What's New segment for today, Miss Jenna.
Yes. And in addition to that, we would love to hear if anyone here knows of anyone who is currently affected by this worldwide, horrific issue, this terrible pandemic. Please let us know in the comments so we can honor them, whether they be sick or deceased or just need some strength. Please, we encourage everyone to reach out and let's honor their names and honor their legacy.
Let us know, family, who are these instructors or elders or students or young people that we can support and use this platform to lend some support to. And of course, there's a lot of people in our PTK community who are frontline healthcare workers or working in a hospital. We also want to shout you out during this time. And, guys and gals, please be safe out there. All right. We know this is a very, very difficult time.
Yes.
I see again, we got Nomad, we got Brother Garrett, Tuhan, Jack Latour has signed in, as well as Brother Doug Marsh. You guys are the community, you viewers are the community that help make this show. So what we're talking today, the upgrades that we're going to be talking about, your feedback is essential. All right. And eventually, you guys will be on this show as guests, mark my words. Okay. So your feedback is going to help for the future interview that we plan to have.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, we have our first honorarium given by Brother Doug. And of course, we want to honor the legacy of Master Kalindi E. He actually is someone who is a part of my personal journey through martial arts. As I trained before PTK, I trained African martial science. And those who don't know, is Brother Kalindi, Master Kalindi, he was one of the pioneers in bringing African martial science from the actual continent of Africa to America, and we give thanks. And of course, Grandmaster Rico Guy, who's like this amazing swordsmith. I don't know if you've ever seen Rico Guy, but amazing with the sword. And we give thanks to these martial artists who were really pioneers in bringing a science and discipline that was unknown and making it accessible to the people. So we give thanks.
Thank you, Brother Doug, for sharing that. And once again, we have to do a better job. We got to honor our folks. And even though Kalindi wasn't PTK specifically, he was a huge influence and got a lot of brothers, I'm saying people in the African American community, into Kali and into SIOC and into combatives-based programs. And so, Jenna and I, we come from the perspective that, life goes on eternally, and that these people have transcended, and by speaking them up, as sad as it may be, our memories of them will live forever. And so we have to do a job of keeping them alive.
We honor the legacy by our works today.
By our works, that's correct.
Yes. Well, that brings us to our next segment of tonight's check-in. So this is a point in the show we normally do. We're doing our interview, our guest interview. At the moment, it's just Guru, Angola, and I. So we are each other's guests.
That's right. And again, if you're just tuning in, Jenna and I are going to do some upgrades so that we can make this experience with our guests and with you, the viewer, even better than before. Everyone has to upgrade during this situation right now. If you're sitting at home and you're not reflecting on how you can be a better you, then you're not using this time wisely. We want to make this show a better experience for everybody, and we want to fulfill our mission in bridging the PTK community even more. So we're going to have different segments of the show when we have our guests. All right. So I always wanted to inform the people as to what's going on.
Yep. All right. So let's jump into some.
Oh, we're each other's guests for today?
Yeah, we're each other's guests. Yes.
Okay. All right. We knew we were each other's guests for today.
And we prepared a theme.
And it's a theme, it's a topic that's very, very important, part of the transition of this show.
Yes.
And part of what's going on. Leadership, the need for leadership? And what does it mean to be a quality leader? And what are the qualifications of a leader? Jenna, I've been really thinking about this and pondering this during this time. And in my reflection, leadership is an art form in and of itself. And my question to the viewers and to you, is there a difference between being a good instructor and being a good leader? When you are a good instructor, does that automatically mean you're a good leader? Can you be a good leader and not be a good instructor? Where do those two concepts overlap? I'm gonna leave it at that. Those are my thoughts. I'll talk about why that was on my mind. But yeah, what are your thoughts, ma'am?
Well, I would say that I'm from the old school. I'm younger, but as you all know, my Facebook is Old Spirit Young Queen. I'm from the old school. I was brought up in the old school of martial science. And then I truly believe that there is no difference, that in order to be a great instructor, you must be a great leader. And of course, in order to do both, you have to be committed to being a student. If you refuse to be a student because now you are in a position of leadership, then you've limited yourself and limited your students. But back to the point, it's very important for a great instructor to be a great leader. Now, the point of divergence, I would say, is maybe someone might be an expert or have a certain, knowledge and skill and high level of skill, but they are not necessarily a good instructor. So, or a good leader. So some people who, may, and particularly in martial science, might be very well trained, can be very good at what they do, but they don't have the qualities of a great instructor or a leader. And so, a leader and an instructor to me go hand in hand. And so in the times that now where we're navigating, is someone qualified to be an instructor? Your skill should be a major factor in that qualification, but also your qualification should be how well can you lead in order to be in the instructor position. That's how I feel. I feel like if you're not a good leader, then you should not be an instructor. And I feel like skill is important, but it's not the only factor when,
So if we said the qualities of a good leader, of a good instructor, are possessing the PTK skill set, being able to transmit that PTK skill set, those might be some off-topic qualities of a good instructor. What are the qualities of a leader that don't include that, of a good leader?
The first thing and the most important thing that I think is the emphasis on the student and the emphasis on, selflessness, because leadership and being instructor, that's service, And so, and you and I are actual teachers in our personal profession, and we truly understand that a big part of our job is putting the student first and thinking about, what we want for the student, as opposed to wanting the student to admire us because of who we are. If you're fighting for that admiration, you lose sight of, what your job is, which is to inspire the student to be a long-term lover of learning. You want them to be a lover of learning, And so, and whether they're an instructor or not, whether they evolve to be an instructor or they just become a great student, you want them to be a long-time lover of learning. And the minute that you're thinking about, people, wanting your students to be overly loyal to you, or wanting your students to think highly of you, or wanting your students to move a certain way, that they're human beings. I mean, and we teach children, and even though like in PTK, most people teach adults, it's still the same thing where, they have their expression is going to be their expression. The way they interpret is going to be the way they interpret. And so it's our job to give without strings as instructors, to give without, saying, well, you owe me this, and so you have to be this or that, or, or requiring our students to move in a way that they may not be comfortable with. It's important for us to always emphasize their growth. You know, it doesn't mean that we don't make our students uncomfortable for the purpose of growth. It means that we think of them first.
If you're just tuning in, we're talking about leadership and the difference between a leader and an instructor. And one of the things I'm hearing you say, Jenna, is one, a good leader, it's not about the leader. It's about whether it's your student or your community. For Jenna and myself, we're on the same page here. Leadership is about service in actuality. And so you're saying a good instructor is someone who could transmit the skill, transmit the material, but then also is putting the needs of their community, of their students first.
Right. And their experiences. You know, the students, it's almost like, you know, children, you know, if you have your own, I mean, and I don't want to belittle anybody, but I'm saying that, you know, we're parents and we have a responsibility for our children to have a good experience, to have a positive experience, to feel confident in themselves, to feel nurtured and supported, regardless of the mistakes that they'll make, regardless of, you know, their frustration in learning, whatever that's going to look like. It's our job to put their needs first. And that's the same way when it comes to instruction. And so you need selflessness, you know.
It's not about you when you're a leader. I want to add to that, but before I do, I see some commentary from our family here. Tuhan Jack said that leadership and being an instructor are exclusive of each other, but should be correlated. Absolutely. Tuhan Jack, that's, how can we do that though? You know, how can we build that bridge between these two exclusive points is my question. And it would be my response question in this conversation. Brother Doug says, absolutely, there's a difference. A lot of the times, the real leaders are the folks behind the scenes and not out front. Just because you are skilled, it doesn't make one a good teacher. Yes, sir. And you know what, Brother Doug, that kind of lends what we were talking about, that a leadership doesn't even, you're not necessarily even the face. You're the one who is helping the group achieve the goal, even if you're not the one to receive the accolades to do so. And
I agree with that. And I'm going to just jump in because, you know, in our classes, you know, I have a children's class that I teach, and but Guru Rangola, he is the head instructor of our class. And, you know, my number one goal when we're training is, you know, we're married, but whether we're on the same page or not, I always want the students to see the example of, you know, what it looks like to be a good student, you know, whether it's, you know, always putting in the work, following the lead of the teacher, you know, showing respect to the other classmates. You know, it is very important that, you know, and so that's, you know, and there's other students who are leaders in our group who do the same thing. And so I like that. That's the behind the scenes leader that I like. So.
Our good friend Morgan from Citadel Combat Arena adds, in his humble opinion, a good instructor is someone who puts the student before themselves. And likewise, a good leader will never ask someone to do something they aren't willing to do themselves and have demonstrated.
Ashe, yes.
Ashe, brother. All right, that's an African term if you haven't heard of that. That's like saying amen, basically. That's so true. You have to do it yourself. You can't expect people to do what leaders do more. Leaders have to do more, okay? We have to step up and do more of the work and put ourselves out there before we ask anybody to put themselves out there. Good point, sir. Tuhan Jack, a good instructor is good technical ability and a good pedagogical approach. Yes, sir. And a good leader inspires others to work to their potential, serves other, and leads by examples. Humble. Yeah, that's right. And again, you know, Tuhan Jack, you're in this Tuhan position. I know you're a very humble man. What do you do when you recognize you have a good instructor, but you want to help build their leadership skills? Just a thought. And our good friend MNG Royce Ramos is adding, what is he saying, my love?
He's saying the qualities of a leader is not necessarily skill-based. Charisma, conscious, passion, these are important. Yes.
You know, I want to add something here, folks, because I'm learning about leadership as well. It's a heavy burden, right? And I find on a leader, you serve the student, yes, You put the student first, yes, but you're also serving the doctrine. You're also serving the code. You're also serving the standard or the goal that you're trying to hold yourself and the people accountable towards in order to reach. And I find that a lot of the struggle in leadership is serving the goal, the doctrine, and serving the community at times. And you know, and your responsibility and role as a leader often has to be fluid, and it has to be honorable to both of these. You have to be true to the people and true to the doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that it can be a conflict or a contradiction as we grow in our leadership. And it's in resolving that conflict and that contradiction that you become a better leader and more of who you are.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my 2 cents.
Yeah.
I see a devil's advocate up there.
Yes, Blackbird Training Group.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's Lamont. That's Mandala Lamont. We just interviewed Blackbird. Jenna.
I didn't know it was his name, but okay.
Good to see you, sir.
But it says to play devil's advocate for a bit. I don't want to say his name wrong. Patton.
General Patton.
Okay, Patton was a hell of a leader and not humble at all. But not humble at all. What do you think about that?
So what I would say to that, sir, is that you have different leadership styles. You have different leadership styles. And while I don't know, you know, and so you have a more alpha, aggressive, more intense type of leadership. You have leaders who are a little more subtle and indirect. What I would think about somebody like Patton is that he was humble where he needed to be. You know what I'm saying? What I think the Patton that you're saying is, and again, I can't speak for the man, but I'm speaking for this archetype of leader, the leader that's often, you know, let's go, very inspiring. And I believe that those people are humble where they need to be. We often don't see that because their leadership requires of them to be strong or to be this type of a person in this moment. But given another context, I think those individuals wouldn't hesitate to be humble and say the right thing that's required for that moment. I'm seeing my chat roll up, so that's why I got a little distracted.
But even if that wasn't the case, I think that, you know, no leader is perfect, and there's but because of that, there's a price that comes with that. That's the burden of leadership, where you're putting yourself out there, and people see who you truly are very quickly as a leader. And then based on where you are, they can critique you, even though they're the student. Now, I do like what Tuhan Jack is saying. Like, I put more responsibility on the student so they have opportunities to rise to the occasion. It shows trust and builds their confidence.
And Tuhan Jack is responding to how do we take good instructors to being strong leaders.
Right. And I think that, you know, in that, you know, it is a difficult balance because, you know, it is important to be yourself, you know, and who you are is who you are. But I think that if deep and down inside, you know, our students have seen us make mistakes, and, you know, and they've also seen us not make mistakes. So, you know, but if deep down inside your intentions are pure, whether you're an alpha who's very passionate, whether you're quiet, you know, if your intentions are pure and it's really about the development of the student, then it won't even matter, because they're going to see you make mistakes, and that's just part of it. You know, if you're not willing to be infallible to other people, then again, it's going to be really hard to be a leader. You'll be flooded with insecurity.
There's a level of being comfortable with vulnerability. That's what you mean. You got to be able to make some mistakes or not be your best self as a leader, and not allow that to impact your performance moving forward.
Right. And then, but you know, there's consequences to that, because, you know, sometimes you'll be a certain type of leader. And I'm sure if we're all in martial science, and most of our people who are commenting have trained more than one discipline, you know, you've gone through seeking the good master, and then you realize that master's an asshole, and you're like, okay, and you have to kind of navigate that, you know, and you decide, okay, do I just leave? Do I take the art because I want to learn? You know, when you go through that process, the consequence, you know, what that can still training, or, you know, you yourself being a leader, and you know, having an issue that's affecting the students, you have to be willing to understand that there's consequences to that. So if you are the leader who's like, value me, or I'm going to distance you. Or if you're the type of leader who's like, don't, or do this, or you're not a part, you can't be a part, or you're the type of leader who's very loud and makes someone feel uncomfortable, then there's going to be consequences to that for the student. And so you have to be willing to understand there's going to be consequences if you're not willing to value the character needed for leadership.
This is rolling on, Jenna. Okay, so Tuhan Jack has responded that while that's true about Patton, his situation was different than ours, and there's an unquestionable chain of command that's enforceable. Morgan has added that parameters that fall on the charisma and the character of each individual. Yeah, you know what I want to say about that, Morgan? I know some people who know they're not charismatic. They know they're not articulate, but they have these beautiful and powerful minds and great ideas. And they surround themselves with people who can help get their ideas across. What does a great leader do who knows they're not the most charismatic individual? Because one thing I will say is that sometimes a charismatic individual is dangerous. They have a magnetic personality. They can attract people, but then they're just setting you up for something down the line. Consequences. Again, our good friend, Brother Royce, is saying he agrees with Tuhan Jack. Patton was a leader, but militarily, you have to have that image of strength. Marcilio Silva from Brazil. We're going to make an announcement about him at the end of the show. Good to hear you. We agree, Marcilio, a good teacher empowers their student. And I think that's what Tuhan Jack was saying about how do you develop an instructor to a leader. I'm glad I see Lamont over there because he just dropped this grenade, Lamont, and then I didn't think you jumped back in. What is Lamont saying?
Lamont says he's challenging MNG Royce, and he says, how many martial arts clubs are led with a leader who has an image of weakness? To give examples of contrasting leadership, think of the leadership styles of Guru Dan and GT.
Okay. And I don't think he was challenging Royce per se.
No.
But, we're getting into this. And I think actually that's what Royce was saying, that Royce was actually saying, because Patton is a general in the military, he has to exude this presence of strength. And so, and that's what Lamont was saying. That's contrary to being humble. And yeah, good, Mandala Lamont, leadership styles. I think that's kind of what at least got me thinking about this. What is your leadership style?
Right.
What leadership style resonates with you?
Right.
What do you do when you're in the presence of a leader who's got a leadership style that triggers you? How do you grow as a leader that's got to follow that kind of leader?
Right. And then also, the thing about a humble leader, just like, you may not be able to present yourself as humble, but you might in turn be humble. So for example, I can just bring it to small terms. As a parent, I'm the bad cop. Like I'm the one who handles it. We have daughters, so I'm bad cop. And so I'm the type of leader in front of my daughters where I'm like, oh, it's going down. And there's no room for anything other than what I say. But internally, I'm like, I know that I'm teaching them in my heart because I want them to be better than me. That's what I say to myself. I want them to be better than me every day. And so in my heart, I'm saying that I have that kind of humble perspective, but in front of them, I'm like, no, you're gonna get this homework done. No, you're gonna sit at the table, And so visibly humble versus what is internal, they feel that. My daughters, even though they're young, they feel that, mommy's just on because she wants me to be really successful in life. And so if your student, like I said, the purity in your spirit will be felt regardless of what you present, to your students. And so what was Patton presenting versus what was he really like? We'll never know.
But he gave us a good model to talk about. Brother Doug Marsh is saying it's up to us to develop the art and help it evolve. And our teachers are the blueprint. And I think that's a great point in one sense, because, I've seen a lot. For example, I've studied a lot with the Grand Tuhan and his leadership style, and I've grown from it, and you take away what resonates with you and what doesn't. I've seen Guru Dan's leadership style and it seems amazing and beautiful, but I've never interacted with it personally. I think what Jenna is saying is an interesting point because she's mentioned a number of times being a good parent. And sometimes the best the lessons from parenting and leadership, being a good parent and being a good leader, are kind of synonymous in our opinion and kind of go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Earl Fernandez saying hello, Philly fam? What's up, good brother? Earl is representing the elites out in New York. Good to see you, sir, for tuning in. He's come out here a number of times for some of our seminars and workshops.
My regards to your family. Yes.
And weakness in character. Tuhan Jack, I don't know if that was a comment that I said that you're referring to, but you know, a lot of times, again, what we talk about from our perspective is a weakness in somebody's character. It's really contextual. People are stronger and weaker in particular moments. And people's characters are stronger and weaker in particular moments. And often not, you may not know your character or the leader within you until you're in a situation where that element has to rise up.
Yes.
Oh, I guess you're referring to what I was saying. If you know yourself not to be charismatic, what do you do? Part of this whole conversation, being a good instructor and leader, is you got to know yourself. And be honest with yourself.
So let's go to our next question. This question is for you, as you, the viewers, as well. My question for you, Guru Angola, is what has been the most difficult aspect and or the most difficult lesson that you've learned as you've explored your leadership, particularly in PTK? That's for you all as well.
What has been my most difficult?
Issue and or thing that you've had to learn and work through.
See, the hoodie comes up. The hoodie comes up for now. I'm just kidding. I'm a very passionate, intense individual who cares about my students, about my teachers, and I think often a lot about PTK training and the community that I'm in. And one of the hardest things that's been for me as a leader is to be able to maintain healthy, productive relationships with people that I love and respect, whose behaviors might be contrary to the end game, whose behaviors might be contrary to the goal we're all trying to meet. And one of the things I've struggled with is that thing we talked about earlier, is where it's not about you, is being able to put myself to the side, remove my ego, remove my pride, and be able to look at the bigger picture and collaborate, communicate, continue to work with people, challenge myself, step out of my own comfort zone, and try to push this vision of, you know what, leadership is service. Leadership is trying to set an example and bring people to a goal. And as much as there's me involved, I got to take me out of it. And so just being straight up, that's been a big lesson for me. And one that I'm so glad that I'm learning. Yeah.
I think that, we actually can look to children and talking about long-term relationships, because, children are way more resilient than adults are. We get a lot more stuck in our ways, and we tap into our ego a little bit more. Even women, it's not a man thing. And I think it's really important, to learn how to be resilient in our relationships with people, and to promote other people to be resilient. In martial science, you kind of have to be, because eventually there's an element of combat where you're going to be like hitting each other as part of training. And, you have to be able to take a hit. You have to be able to, have that thing where you don't agree or you don't like something, but you move forward anyway. And it's a hard thing to get through for adults. And, it is a difficult, topic. I think that everyone's had someone come into their training space and challenge them.
Well, let me give a different, let me say this in a different way though. Let me give this as a story, all right? So I have this student that I've been a great instructor to. I've trained him for years, and he's great. He's really good, all right? And you know, the past few years, however, I'd say about a year and a half, he's fallen off. He hasn't trained as much. He doesn't communicate as much. He's growing. He's got life issues. So as an instructor, I know I've provided the material for what he's trained. As a leader, I'm trying to bring him back in, maintain a rapport, maintain a connection. At first, I got in the way because I was taking stuff personal. Like, why isn't this guy? I'm being real. Do you guys know that feeling? Man, I put all these hours into this student. I've invested. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm answering questions. I'm making videos for years. I'm paying for this. He's gonna do 3 months. I bought him his first sticks. You know, he cut me with the live blade. You know, and then all of a sudden it's, you know, I got in the way. My own personality was interfering with my support for this particular individual. And while I was a good instructor in PTK, I needed to be a better leader and take myself out and say, actually approach it a different way, figure out what was going on, and then found out the guy's going through stuff. You know, there was a whole other type of stuff the individual was going through. It wasn't difficult for him to communicate. He was very self-conscious about not making class. He was felt bad, and he was going through all the same thing that I was going through, but on the other end. But if it wasn't for that 2 millimeter shift in how I approached the situation, I could have lost a student and a friend. Right. And so it doesn't always have to come as a challenge. I know I've talked for a long time.
And that's what a lot of, you know, the people who are commenting are saying.
Can you know, give me some of these comments?
So Brother Morgan is saying, I have been my own most difficult issue. 100% of my issues are of my making. And I am struggling with how to deal with that. Learning the system is not an issue. Fundamentally changing who I am is war. And then, you know, Tuhan Jack is a great, encourager. He's saying it can be done, Morgan, and well worth it. I wish you well in that struggle. And then, MNG Royce is saying, absolutely, in martial arts, we are our own worst enemies. Ego does become a big issue. And being a leader, instructor, teacher, guide, guru, etc., it goes double or triple. Hey, how you doing, Brother Uru? Hope all is well with the family. Give my best to your mom.
Uru, one love.
And MNG goes on to say, I know that too, going through that now, and more than a couple of my guys. And Brother Doug is saying the hardest part as a teacher is understanding that most of the folks that come in won't develop to the level that you can see them ascending to. A very small percentage will take it as serious as we do. And and so I 100% agree with that. I 100% agree that, you know, the main thing we have to understand is that to let people be people. And what I've seen from the better leaders in PTK, you know, one of which is our, you know, I've seen it with our own leader, that who we learn from, that, you know, it's not about controlling the student. It's about you seeing what the student wants and needs and where they're going to go, and you investing and doing the best you can for that time. It's up to them to choose what path they're going to take. Are they going to go all in, all the way in? Not so, but it's, you know, it's not on us to try to force that, because people are going to be who they are, and it could be a child or adult.
I see Tuhan Jack is like, it's like footwork drills on Maslow's triangle. And you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if folks are unfamiliar, you know, food, clothes, and shelter, and then it goes up. And Citadel is actually, Morgan is agreeing that PTK is not just martial arts, it's serious life work. Yes, my friend. Those individuals we feel who can make that alignment between your character development is synonymous to your training development, you're really beginning to grow.
Right.
You know, when I can sidestep a situation, a conversation, you know, when I could take off from something at the job, or, you know, metaphorically speaking, when we can apply these concepts in our lives to become better people, I think that's we're getting closer to being leaders. Earl's got a question.
Yes. Brother Earl says, what advice could you give to senior students who may be the future leaders? For example, how to face adversities, grow as a practitioner, and what to always keep in their mind.
We want to hear from you guys in regards to Earl's question, because we got a lot of experience on the board here. Earl, for me to answer your question, step one is every individual has to know themselves. You know, we have to be honest with, why am I even training PTK? Why do I want to be an instructor? Why, you know, what qualifies me to in PTK and out of PTK? There's like a lot of honest self-talk and self-dialogue, because what has to happen is I have to set the standard that I want my students to follow. If I'm not the living standard of what I want my students to follow, then they're not going to honor it. You know, there's a famous saying where the parents, you know, children fail to listen to their parents, but they never fail to emulate their parents. And so it's by authentically being the model within myself for me, not even my other students, for me, let me be true to myself and live my best self 100%. What's the bullshit that's getting in my way? What are my vices? What are my obstacles? Let me begin to remove that. I think that when an individual, Earl, begins that process, a lot of things will become more clear to that individual, and you're going to be on the right track.
Yeah.
Did you want anything to add to that?
I think it's important to always find a way to like Guru Ringo is saying, know yourself, but have reflection. You know, have reflection, and always a way to bring yourself to a certain center. That's just very key. I mean, it's key in when you're learning any system, whether you're just a student or, you know, or whatever you want to be. But it's important to be able to find your center, because when you're finding your center, you're really in the point where you can be authentic in what you're doing. And of course, never stop training. Never stop training.
You know, Earl, another thing that just made me remember, there are people that I know that I can go to who are going to give it to me real. They're going to talk to me straight. They're not going to be afraid to tell me what I need to hear. And having those people in your corner, in your circle, is very important. Because like they say, you know, only a fool leans on his own misunderstanding. You know, so even while I'm going through my own self-talk, it's also important to have those individuals, whether they're PTK or not, who you know are going to give you genuine quality feedback, because they care about you. And those are the individuals that I'm going on this process, I'm going to be turning to help me refine and develop myself. Lamont, I see you're saying that it really depends on the student, and that's a fact too. You know, that's a fact too. And I think what Lamont is saying is, where are you at when you begin? You know, if you're the more extroverted type of leader, then, you know, you may have to work on listening more. And if you're a more introverted type of leader, you may have to work on establishing your voice more. But I always feel like these things come natural and organically in the process. You're not like, how do I be a better leader? Journal today. Am I a good leader? I'm not a good, you know, you know, as long as we're just sticking to the goals and moving forward, we're going to get there. I see some more comments there, love.
Yeah. Brother Royce is saying again, to foster their growth towards their strengths, foster discipline and accountability, and help them recognize the weakness or characteristics they want to improve and develop. And that goes again with just being a selfless leader, thinking about the student first. And Brother Morgan is saying the key to the child becoming the parent is not listening. You hit this. It's the observing that will reflect later on down the line. They have to see it in you. You cannot tell them. That's very true. You have to be the change as opposed to trying to enforce it and burn ears off. My children in one ear, out the other, but they'll see it and then they'll do. And then Brother Marcilio is saying, in my opinion, a good leader is one who works for the growth of all, not just for the growth of self. Brother Doug says, just to stay with it and up to the challenge of teaching. Becoming comfortable in teaching won't come overnight, which is very true. And oh, then you respond, Brother Earl, and you say, that's true. For me as a student, my goal is to continue practicing PTK and represent my teachers very well in skill and knowledge. As responsibility piles, I get more nervous. I'll be honest, Earl, you know that I've seen you help other students. You're good. You're doing a good job.
If you haven't familiar with young Brother Earl, he's a student of Matas Naguro and Jolie and Matas Naguro Francis RV out in New York. Great. Yeah, he's just a great student, and I'm glad you posted this kind of question. Folks, if you notice, we've been reading the comments during the show. And what's going on is we started off the show talking about the mission statement of People Talking Kali. And we also talked about we're going to upgrade the quality of the show so that our guests and this experience can be better for you. We're going to have always like what's new in PTK. We're going to have our set interview. We're going to take questions from you all. Maybe, may even have, a couple of games, but we're going to find ways to keep the viewer interactive. If you missed the earlier part of the show, we said the mission of People Talking Kali was a way where it's a non-political platform where no matter what camp you come from, you could come here and we could talk about PTK and just the passion for training. Okay, and so, with that being said, we want to continue to encourage our guests and the experience of being on the show. And by us talking while this is happening, if you're just tuning in, it's a way to reference where we are in the conversation. I made that mistake of talking and glancing over, and then I messed up on my train of thought. But basically, today's show is kind of like a recap of our mission statement, upgrading and how we're going to move forward. You're going to notice it, but we just kind of wanted to prepare you guys for it. We wanted to talk about this topic of leadership, because right now, more than ever, in PTK and in the world, we need leaders. We need leaders, folks. Okay, we need selfless individuals who are not afraid to do what's right for the greater good. And there was something else I wanted to say, my love, and it actually just slipped my thought. I apologize. Help me out here.
It's all good. I mean, I have a slight little activity we could do. It's gonna take 2 seconds. I promise. It's a follow. It's a slight little quiz, and all you have to do is answer the last word. Okay, and we're gonna go with our topic of leader. Can we do that?
I'm following your lead
here,
Jenna.
So you just have to answer.
I'm on the spot, just like you guys. Yes. This is brand new right now.
All right, here we go, and it goes like this.
Wait, what do I have to do?
You have to just answer the last word of the sentence, and we're going to use the theme of leader. Okay.
Okay.
And so here's the first one. A leader thinks about
their people.
Okay. A leader shows
the example.
A leader needs
to be honest with themselves.
And a leader wants
what's best for the greater good.
That's a great one.
Oh my God, that was tough.
Gotta put you on the spot sometimes.
Oh, well, so what was the question? What were the questions?
The questions were: a leader is.
A leader is.
A leader shows.
A leader shows.
A leader needs.
A leader needs.
And a leader wants.
And a leader wants.
Yes.
Put your answers in the chat. Put your answers in the comments. We got some Tuhans lined up coming up in May. We got some strong individuals coming up. Next Saturday, 8 p.m. Our friend, we want to honor him. He was on the chat. Marcilio Silva coming out of Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. We got our Brazilian representative representing the World Federation will be on next Saturday, 8 p.m. our time. It'll be 9 p.m. his time. Message me personally your feedback. Royce, Morgan, some of you folks, Doug, you guys are tuning in a lot. Don't hesitate to drop me a line and let us know what's working, what's not working. One of the next and final updates that I want to share, when you guests come on the show, we are going to have gifts for you. We finally starting to work our PTK, People Talking Kali product that we want to give to you, the guests, because you're taking your time, you're taking your energy, and you're coming on the show. So all the guests that we had from last year, we got something for you. All our future guests, we'll show you guys on the next show what that is. And it's something that we, you, the community, can also possibly have if you're interested. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is our summation for today. We're going to just wrap up these final comments here.
Yep. We just got some just beautiful feedback. And Nomad is seconding how great Brother Earl is and how essential he's been to the PTK elite group. And so never forget your worth, Brother Earl. And Mandala Lamont says, to Earl, I'd be perfectly happy to play second fiddle to someone and let them deal with the hassle of running a club. But I moved to a new city and that forced me into the leadership.
Brother Lamont, it's funny how most leaders are forced into the position.
Mm-hmm.
Am I wrong?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we organically just pick up the mantle and move forward. Mandala, it was so great to host you last week. I'm glad you chimed in today. We're not often going to be doing this, but once again, we decided to upgrade the show, make some quick changes. Marcilio Silva will be on next Saturday, 8 p.m., and we're going to keep moving forward. Everybody be safe, you know, follow the proper protocols out there. Regardless of whatever spectrum you're on with this whole pandemic, whether you're thinking it's this or you're thinking it's that, you know, remember to be a leader, be authentic to yourself, keep your family and the individuals around you safe.
And healthy.
With that being said, loyalty, wisdom, respect.
Life, health, and success.
Let's give this a salute. Loyal. See y'all later. More power and one love.